I hate to break it to you, Casey Anthony, your time may be up. Local media reports an Orlando grand jury meets next week, and prosecutors are pushing for homicide charges.
Preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. That's what defense attorney Jose Baez told the Today Show. But Baez did not say whether he expects Casey Anthony to be indicted on homicide charges in the disappearance of her 3-year-old daughter, Caylee.
Casey Anthony waited a month before contacting authorities about her disappearance. Newly released surveillance video isn't helping Anthony. She can be seen shopping for lingerie and beer just weeks after her little girl disappeared. Investigators believe the little girl, Caylee, is dead. While her body hasn't been found, lab tests turned up evidence of human decomposition in the trunk of her mother's car.
See, I know, and you know, that everything you told me is a lie, correct?
Not everything that I told you.
Okay. Pretty much everything that you told me, including where Caylee is right now.
That I don't know where she is.
Sure you do. And here's,
absolutely do not know where she is.
Baez says it would be pointless for Anthony to testify at a grand jury, saying it's her right not to testify in a proceeding where it's, quote, a one-sided affair. He says police gave up looking for Caylee a long time ago and blames the media for that.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. I want to thank you for being with us tonight. The desperate search for a beautiful 3-year-old Florida girl, Caylee.
Everything you've told me so far has been a lie. I've gone to every address that you've told me. I've looked up every name. I've talked to every person that you wanted me to talk to or tried to. I found out all these names that you're giving me are people that either never worked here or have been fired here for a long time ago. Okay? So where we are right now is in a position that doesn't look very good for you.
Florida investigators believe they can prove to a grand jury Casey Anthony killed her 3-year-old daughter, Caylee.
You're telling me that Zenaida took your child without your permission and hasn't returned her?
The last person that I've seen with my daughter, yes.
They plan on piecing together inconsistencies from interviews she gave police, as well as presenting evidence from Anthony's car. And they also plan on showing Anthony had been doing computer searches on chloroform. Investigators are hoping, without a body, crime scene, confession, or witness, that the evidence they do have will be enough for a homicide charge. A grand jury meets next Tuesday.
Straight out to Jessica D'Onofrio with WKMG, who broke the news that this case is heading to a secret grand jury likely on Tuesday. Jessica, what more can you tell us?
Well, Nancy, we do know that that is going to happen on Tuesday. This case is going to go to a grand jury. They will hear it. It'll be the last case that this grand jury hears before they dissolve. I know that family is going to be subpoenaed. They will testify. We're talking about George and Cindy Anthony, Casey's parents, being called to testify in front of that grand jury. And the more and more I talk about it with people I know who are very close to this case, it's looking more and more like they are going to go for a murder case here instead of a manslaughter case. The idea being, why not go for all of it and then get manslaughter or something lesser later? But, you know, I think that people really need to know that this investigation, they have hair samples, air samples, they have cadaver dogs alerting to the trunk of Casey Anthony's car that there was a decomposing body there, and, you know, they have a lot more evidence that we don't know about, particularly involving motive.
To Mark Williams with WNDB News Radio 1150, significant. In the Florida jurisdiction, only certain and limited cases go to a grand jury. Explain.
Well, what we know is that it's only capital cases that go to the grand juries here in the state of Florida. That's been the way it has proceeded for the past many years. And, you know, any place from 2 to 20 or even more witnesses can be called in front of a grand jury. Now, right now in the list, there's about 35 law enforcement officers ready to testify against Casey Anthony.
Have you seen the list?
Not yet, but...
Then how do you know there's 35 people set to testify?
This is what I'm receiving off the street from a lot of my sources that I've contacted and talked to over the past day or so. And, of course, as Jessica reported, George and Cindy Anthony supposed to be there. Lee Anthony obviously will be called as well. And they've also taken those DNA swabs, both from George and Cindy, but they needed a search warrant to get a DNA swab from brother Lee, who didn't want to give up his DNA initially.
Standing outside the Anthony home, joining us from Orlando, our producer Natisha Lance. Is it true, Natisha, have you been able to confirm that Lee Anthony refused a polygraph? Okay, when we get Natisha back, we'll be straight back with her. What about it, Mark Williams?
Well, from what we understand, and this is from Leonard Padilla, who came to Orlando a couple of weeks ago. He's the bounty hunter from Sacramento, California, who first bailed Casey Anthony out of jail. They were all sitting in the motorhome, and Lee went inside the house. They were given the opportunity to do a lie detector test, a polygraph test to clear everybody, the Anthonys plus Lee, and Lee went in there and told his parents not to do it, and he didn't do it.
So I guess that is a no. He's not taken a polygraph.
No.
He has refused the polygraph.
That's right.
You know what's significant? Let's unleash the lawyers. Everyone, we're taking your calls live. Joining us tonight, felony prosecutor out of Atlanta, Eleanor Dixon. Veteran trial lawyer, defense attorney Peter Odom out of the Atlanta jurisdiction, and trial lawyer Paul Batista and author of Death's Witness joining us from New York. Eleanor, explain why it is so significant that in the Florida jurisdiction this case is going to a grand jury. It tells me what charge they are seeking.
Exactly, and a capital charge would be one in which the state could seek the death penalty, such as murder, armed robbery in some situations, rape. Those type of cases are capital cases.
Now, in the jurisdiction of Florida, apparently, indictments can be handed down, charges can be handed down by what is called an information, which means the prosecutor, him or herself, simply writes out the charges, and that goes to a jury. Peter Odom, for murder 1 in Florida, you have to go to a grand jury. That tells me that's the charge they're going to seek against Casey Anthony.
Right, and that tells us that the prosecutors must have something that we don't know about yet, because we don't know anything about a body, we don't know anything about a cause and manner of death, we don't know anything about a crime scene, we don't know anything about admissions of guilt or a weapon. Unless they have those elements, they're going to have a hard time.
Before you became a defense attorney, it's my understanding, Peter Odom, that you were a veteran prosecutor. Have you never heard of prosecuting a case without a body? You want me to give a gold star, an A+ to a killer that manages to conceal the body? They should just walk scot-free?
You can get a prosecution without a body. Sometimes you can get a prosecution without a cause and manner of death. Sometimes you can get a prosecution without a crime scene. But without all these elements, with all of these elements missing, Nancy, they have a very tough road to hoe, unless there's something we just don't know
Well, hold
about.
on just a moment. To Leonard Padilla, joining us out of Sacramento, California, the bounty hunter who first posted a $500,000 bail on Anthony before coming off that bond. There's quite a significant amount of circumstantial evidence, such as what, Leonard Padilla?
Well, you've got the air samples in the trunk of the car. You've got Caylee's DNA. Don't be confused, because people say, well, you know, they've just got hair strands, but they got hair strands with the death band on it. They've got the DNA of Caylee in the trunk of that car, and they've also got even statements by Casey herself stating about the odor in the car, except that she wants to blame it on squirrels. They've also got the pings, which show exactly where she was from the 16th through the 30th, and they will find the body before they go to trial on the case itself. Maybe not before the grand jury, but before they go to the trial, they'll find the body.
To Mike Brooks, former Fed with the FBI, what in your mind is the strongest evidence? Tonight the defense team is poo-pooing any evidence by the state. What do you think?
Well, Nancy, I think the whole timeline that they have right now, and Leonard has helped to fill that in as we go along. I think that, along with all the evidence they have that was in the trunk, in the chloroform, and there's a lot that they're not telling us. I guarantee you, Nancy, as a former investigator, there is evidence they are not showing us right now, and that is going to come into play in the grand jury, and that is what's going to nail her to the cross.
Just hours ago, the defense team publicly mocks the grand jury system, saying they don't believe in it. Well, surprise, it's been around since the 12th century. Take a listen.
I don't think it's in her advantage to testify in a proceeding where it's a one-sided affair, where only the prosecutor is allowed. It's a secret, closed-door session where they present one side of the story, and it's not something that I will expose my client or any other client that I have in the future to testify to, because I don't believe in the grand jury proceeding.
That is the Taunton mom's defense on the Today Show just hours ago. And of course, although she's not appearing before the grand jury, Casey Anthony will appear tomorrow morning to beg a judge to let her off house arrest. You are seeing shots of her on a shopping spree after her daughter goes missing.